I'm Sarah Morgan, 28, and I've always been the family disappointment. Despite my success that day at my cousin's royal wedding, I never imagined my own father would publicly destroy me. The diamond necklace Nathaniel gave me, my most treasured possession, became the catalyst for my humiliation. "She's just the housemaid," my father screamed before ripping it from my neck, drawing blood as hundreds of aristocratic guests watched in shock. I never thought my own father would strip away my dignity in front of hundreds of guests. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from today? Hit that subscribe button and like this video. If you've ever had family treat you like you weren't enough, trust me, what happened next changed everything. Growing up in the Mitchell family meant one thing above all else. Appearances mattered more than anything, more than happiness, more than health, and certainly more than authentic relationships. My parents, Richard and Eleanor Mitchell, built their entire existence around climbing the social ladder, and my cousin Amelia was their golden standard for success. "Why Can't You Be More Like Amelia" became the soundtrack of my childhood. Amelia with her perfect grades, Amelia with her country club tennis trophies, Amelia with her ability to charm every adult in the room. Meanwhile, I was always the odd one out, preferring sketch pads to social gatherings, finding beauty in imperfection rather than striving for flawless presentation. The real trouble began when I turned 18 and announced I'd be attending art school instead of pursuing the business degree my father had mapped out for me since birth. The argument that followed left scars deeper than any physical wound could. Art, my father had scoffed, his face wreathing with that familiar rage. "Artists are parasites, Harper. They contribute nothing to society and die penniless. No daughter of mine will throw her life away on childish doodles." I went anyway. That decision created the first major rift between us, a canyon that would only widen with time. What my parents never revealed to their precious social circle was that behind the facade of luxury cars and country club memberships, the Mitchell family finances were crumbling. My father's investment firm had taken several massive hits during the recession, but rather than scale back our lifestyle, my parents doubled down on appearances, mortgaging our future to maintain the illusion of prosperity. The strain showed in subtle ways, while Amelia received a brand new luxury car for her 16th birthday. I was given excuses when the household staff was quietly reduced. I was expected to pick up the slack, cooking, cleaning, and helping organize events, while Amelia remained the pristine princess, never lifting a finger. "It builds character," my mother would say as she handed me rubber gloves and cleaning supplies before their dinner parties. But I noticed Amelia's character never needed such development for years ago. My life changed forever. I was working at a charity gala, not as a guest, but as part of the catering staff to make extra money for art supplies. That's where I met Nathaniel Pierce. He wasn't like the other wealthy attendees who looked through service workers as if they were invisible when I accidentally spilled water on his custom tuxedo. I expected anger instead. He helped me clean up the other glasses I'd dropped. "I'm so sorry. I'll pay for the cleaning," I'd stammered, mortified. He'd smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "It's just water, though. I'd love to." "Know what distracted you so completely?" The truth was, I'd been sketching his profile on a napkin when I reluctantly showed him. Instead of being creeped out, he asked if he could keep it. We talked for hours after my shift ended. Nathaniel wasn't impressed by family names or social connections. He valued creativity, authenticity, and kindness. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Within 6 months, we were married in a private ceremony on a beach at sunrise. Just us, a justice of the peace, and 2 witnesses from among Nathaniel's most trusted friends. I didn't invite my family. The pain of potential rejection outweighed any fantasy of reconciliation. What my family didn't know, what I never bothered to tell them during our infrequent strained phone calls, was exactly who Nathaniel Pierce was. As the founder of Pierce Technologies, he'd revolutionized renewable energy storage, making him not just wealthy, but influential on a global scale. His net worth had crossed into billions years ago, but you'd never know it. From his humble demeanor and preference for privacy, money is just a tool. He'd tell me it's what you build with it that matters. On our first anniversary, Nathaniel gifted me a necklace that took my breath away, a simple yet elegant diamond pendant on a platinum chain, but its value wasn't in its price tag. "This contains the first diamond I ever purchased," he explained, as he fastened it around my neck before the company took off. Before any success, I bought this small stone as a promise to myself that one day I'd build something meaningful. Now it's my promise to you that what we're building together means more to me than any business ever could. I wore that necklace every day for 3 years. It wasn't about flaunting wealth. It was a private reminder of love and believing in possibilities. When the invitation to Amelia's wedding arrived, my first instinct was to decline. She was marrying Sebastian Windsor, son of Lord William Windsor, distant relations to British aristocracy with old money and older prejudices. The event promised to be exactly the kind of superficial spectacle my parents worshipped, and I'd grown to despise. You should go. Nathaniel encouraged, not for them, but for yourself. Closure matters. He was right as usual. Perhaps this was an opportunity to finally make peace with my past. Nathaniel planned to join me, but a last-minute crisis with a major sustainable energy project in Africa needed his personal attention. I'll be there as soon as I can, he promised, kissing me goodbye at the airport just a few hours behind you at most. I fingered my necklace nervously, my talisman of courage. I'll be fine until then. How wrong I was. How catastrophically, humiliatingly wrong. The Windsor family estate in the English countryside looked like something from a period drama, sprawling gardens surrounding a genuine castle that had been in their family for generations. Stepping out of my taxi, I felt distinctly out of place. Despite my carefully chosen attire, I'd selected a forest green silk dress that complemented my eyes, elegant but not flashy, expensive but not ostentatious. The diamond necklace rested against my collarbone, my secret source of strength. Stone gargoyles seemed to judge me from their perches as I approached the massive oak doors. Foodmen in formal livery directed guests through a grand entryway adorned with fresh floral arrangements that must have cost more than my first car. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors while a string quartet played softly in an adjacent room. Name, please, asked a tuxedo attendant with a British accent so proper it seemed almost caricatured. Sarah Morgan, I replied, then added the bride's cousin. His eyebrow arched slightly before he consulted his list. Yes, Mrs. Mitchell. You're seated in Section C for the ceremony. I didn't correct his assumption that I shared Nathaniel's last name. Pierce was indeed my legal name now, but explaining that would only invite questions I wasn't ready to answer inside the ostentatious display of wealth was almost suffocating. Ice sculptures, rare orchids imported from Thailand, and champagne that flowed as freely as the Thames. My mother Eleanor spotted me first. Her face performing that familiar transformation, initial shock, followed by a quick assessment of my appearance, culminating in a tight smile that never reached her eyes. Harper, she said, air kissing near my cheeks. You actually came in alone. No surprise there. Before I could respond, my Aunt Victoria materialized beside her, a vision in lavender taffeta that made her resemble an aging lilac. Well, well, Victoria drawled. Our little artist has returned. Love the dress, dear department store. It's Valentino, actually. I replied immediately, hating myself for taking the bait. Victoria's eyes narrowed as she took in my appearance, more carefully lingering on my necklace. That's quite a statement piece. Costume jewelry has come such a long way, hasn't it? It was a gift, I said, simply refusing to elaborate. My mother's gaze, also fixed on the diamond. You've done well for yourself. It seems finally found a proper job. My gallery showing in Manhattan was quite successful. I answered, the half-truth bitter on my tongue. My art had indeed been featured in a prestigious gallery, but I hadn't mentioned that Nathaniel's connections had opened that door initially. My work had spoken for itself. Afterward, Eleanor's smile tightened further. How creative. Well, don't let Amelia see you until after the photographs. She's been terribly stressed, and we wouldn't want to upset her with any surprises. The message was clear. I was a potential embarrassment to be managed, not family to be embraced, as they drifted away to greet more important guests. I caught a glimpse of the bride to be holding court across the room. Amelia looked stunning in what was clearly her pre-wedding outfit. Her actual gown would make its debut at the ceremony. Her golden hair was styled in an elaborate updo, her makeup flawless, her laugh practiced to musical perfection as she charmed a circle of admirers. Our eyes met briefly across the crowded room. Her smile faltered for just a second before she turned deliberately away, whispering something to her friend that caused both to glance back at me with barely concealed amusement. Don't take it personally. She's been insufferable to everyone. I turned to find Rachel, my second cousin, standing beside me with 2 champagne flutes. She handed me one with a genuine smile that felt like finding water in a desert. Rachel, thank God, a friendly face. I embraced her warmly. Rachel had always been kind to me. Perhaps because, as the daughter of the family's black sheep uncle, she understood what it meant to be perpetually judged and found wanting. You look amazing, she said sincerely. Life away from this circus clearly agrees with you. I can't believe you're still sane after dealing with the wedding preparations, I replied. Rachel rolled her eyes. 3 changed color schemes, 5 different cake tastings, and 1 fired wedding planner. Later, here we are. But enough about the bride. Zilla, tell me about you. That necklace is stunning. As Rachel and I caught up, I couldn't help overhearing fragments of nearby conversations, mostly gossip about the financial arrangements between the families. The words merger and bailout floated above discussions of the bride's dress and honeymoon plans. The Windsor are essentially buying a connection to American investors. An elderly woman in pearls whispered none too quietly to her companion Williams. Shipping business needs the liquidity that Richard can provide, and the Mitchells need the Windsor name to restore their credibility after that dreadful business with the SEC investigation. Her friend replied, I nearly choked on my champagne sec investigation. My father's firm had always operated in a gray area ethically, but actual legal troubles were news to me across the room. I spotted my father engaged in conversation with an imposing silver-haired man who could only be Lord Windsor Richards. Body language was unusual, differential, almost nervous, as he nodded repeatedly at whatever the older man was saying. My father was many things, but rarely submissive. Something was off. Rachel confirmed, following my gaze. Apparently, he's been questioning your father rather intensely about business credentials. The prenup negotiations were brutal before I could inquire further. My Uncle Maxwell approached, his considerable girth preceding him through the crowd. Harper, my dear. Girl? He boomed, embracing me with surprising warmth. What a vision you are, and what is this magnificent piece? His fingers reached toward my necklace before I could step back. Just a gift, Uncle Max. I deflected. Some gift. He whistled. Your young man must be doing quite well for himself. You must introduce us. His sudden interest in my personal life was suspicious. Maxwell had barely acknowledged my existence at family gatherings past, but now he was looking at me with calculating eyes that reminded me unnervingly of my father's expression when assessing a potentially valuable business connection as the guests began migrating toward the castle's private chapel for the ceremony. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd stepped into a performance where everyone knew their roles except me and somehow my necklace had become part of a script I hadn't read. The hour before the ceremony found guests mingling in the castle's grand gallery, surrounded by portraits of Windsor ancestors looking down their aristocratic noses at us. I steeled myself and approached Amelia, who was holding court among her bridesmaids in a corner, adorned with white roses and baby's breath. Amelia, I said, offering a genuine smile. You look beautiful. Congratulations. My cousin turned, her expression momentarily unguarded, showing surprise that I'd actually approached her before her society mask slipped back into place. Harper, what a surprise. You clean up surprisingly decent when you try. Her gaze traveled from my carefully styled hair down to my shoes, assessing and dismissing. In the same practice, sweep green was an interesting choice, almost matches the staff uniforms. Her bridesmaids tittered on cue. I wanted to wish you happiness. I continued, refusing to take the bait. Sebastian seems lovely. He's perfect, Amelia agreed her. Diamond engagement ring catching the light as she gestured. His family's estate makes our summer home look positively middle class. You should see their yacht. Just as I was about to excuse myself from this excruciating exchange, a deep voice with a British accent interrupted us. I don't believe we've met. I'm William Windsor. Sebastian's father, Lord Windsor, was imposing up close, tall, silver-haired, with the perfect posture of someone who'd never questioned his place in the world. His handshake was firm. His assessment direct, Sarah Morgan. I replied, Amelia's cousin Mitchell. He repeated, his gaze sharpening with interest, Richard's daughter. Yes, though we're not particularly close. I admitted. His eyes dropped to my necklace, and something changed in his expression. That's a remarkable piece. May I, unlike my uncle? He waited for my nod before leaning closer to examine the diamond. Exceptional clarity. Single source, if I'm not mistaken. South African, I believe. So I answered, surprised by his expertise. The setting is distinctive, reminds me of Pierce Designs. They do extraordinary work with ethically sourced stones. He straightened, looking at me with new interest. Are you acquainted with Nathaniel Pierce by any chance? Before I could respond, my mother materialized at my elbow, her fingers digging into my arm with warning pressure. Lord Windsor, I see you've met our Harper, she interjected, her voice unnaturally high. She's our artistic one, works in, what is it now? Dear graphic design. Fine art, actually, I corrected. How fascinating, Lord Windsor replied, though his attention remained on my necklace. I was just admiring your daughter's remarkable pendant. It bears a striking resemblance to Nathaniel Pierce's early work. I have several pieces from his collection myself. My mother's grip tightened painfully. Harper has always had an eye for convincing reproductions. Lord Windsor's eyebrow arched. Indeed, it looks authentic to me. A commotion near the entrance spared me from having to respond. A man in his 60s entered, surrounded by several assistants, all clutching phones and tablets. Julian Blackwood. Lord Windsor explained his tone, cooling Sebastian's godfather and a business associate. Excuse me, I should greet him as he walked away. My mother rounded on me. Her smile vanished. What game are you playing? She hissed. That necklace. Where did you get it? You know your father's business depends on this connection. It was a gift, I repeated, extracting my arm from her grip. And I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play innocent, Eleanor snapped. First you embarrass us by refusing to participate in the bridal preparations. Then you show up flaunting jewelry you couldn't possibly afford. Unless she stopped abruptly, her eyes widening. Unless you've done something stupid. Tell me you haven't sold those ridiculous paintings to finance some counterfeit jewelry to upstage your cousin. The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. You really think I'd go to such lengths to impress people who've never supported me? A flash of unease crossed my mother's face. Then how Eleanor Victoria interrupted, rushing over with undisguised panic. Julian Blackwood is here, and he's asking about Pierce Technologies. Renewable energy contracts. My mother palled. Why would he? He saw Harper's necklace. Victoria whispered urgently. Lord Windsor pointed it out to him. Both women turned to me with identical expressions of suspicion and alarm. What have you done? Eleanor demanded before I could answer. Victoria deliberately bumped into a passing waiter, causing him to spill a full glass of red wine down the front of my dress. Oh, how clumsy! Victoria exclaimed with theatrical dismay. Harper, you poor thing, you'll need to clean up immediately. The ladies' room is just down that hall, far away from the pre-ceremony photographs. Thank goodness, stunned and dripping, I had no choice but to retreat, the expensive silk of my dress now ruined, in the bathroom. I did my best to salvage the situation with paper towels and cold water, fighting back. Tears of frustration. Just like old times, I muttered to my reflection. Always the family embarrassment as I worked on the stain. The bathroom door opened and two women entered, engaged in hushed conversation. I recognized Victoria's friend Judith and one of Sebastian's aunts. They didn't notice me in the far corner. The entire Mitchell family is on the brink of financial collapse. Judith was saying Richard's firm is under investigation for mismanagement of client funds. This marriage is their last hope. William knows, Sebastian's aunt replied. He's using Richard's desperation to secure extremely favorable terms for that shipping merger. The Mitchell will essentially work for the Windsor after today, and Sebastian does. He love the girl? At least a dismissive laugh. He loves her family's connections to American investors. Love has nothing to do with arrangements at this level. Darling. They continued into stalls, oblivious to my presence. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and texted Nathaniel. Family in major financial trouble. Wedding is business arrangement. Everyone acting strange about my necklace. Missing you. His reply came seconds later. Landing in 30 minutes. Stay safe. Love you. My stomach knotted with dread as I realized I'd stumbled into something far more complicated than family drama. This wasn't just about old resentments. It was about money, power, and desperate people with everything to lose. The wedding ceremony proceeded with all the pomp and spectacle befitting the marriage of two supposedly prestigious families. Trumpet fanfares announced Amelia's entrance as she glided down the aisle in a gown with a train so long it required 3 attendants. Sebastian waited at the altar, handsome in his morning suit, though his smile seemed practiced rather than joyful. Despite being immediate family, I found myself seated in the back row, wedged between distant relatives who eyed my wine-stained dress with poorly concealed disdain. The stain had dried to an ugly brownish splotch, despite my best efforts making me look exactly like the disheveled family disappointment they'd always painted me to be. Lord Windsor gave a speech about family legacy and new beginnings that seemed innocuous until he made pointed reference to genuine success built on innovation rather than financial manipulation. His gaze swept meaningfully over my father, whose fixed smile never wavered even as his complexion reened. More surprising was Lord Windsor's next comment in business, as in, marriage integrity is paramount. We've had the privilege of working with true visionaries like Nathaniel Pierce, who understand that wealth without ethics is merely organized greed. The name drop sent a ripple of whispers through the assembly. My father's knuckles whitened around his prayer book, and my mother cast a suspicious glance in my direction. After the interminable ceremony came the reception in the castle's great hall. Round tables draped in white linen surrounded a dance floor with the head. Table elevated on a dais, I found my name card at the table furthest from the bride and groom beside the restrooms and kitchen entrance, a placement that couldn't possibly have been accidental. I'd barely touched my appetizer when Julian Blackwood approached, wineglass in hand. "You must be Harper Mitchell," he said without preamble. "Extraordinary necklace you're wearing, Pierce's Genesis design, isn't it?" I tried to acquire it several times, but Nathaniel was quite adamant it wasn't for sale at any price. Conversation at our table died as everyone strained to listen. "Nathaniel Pierce?" I asked carefully. "Competitor. You might say, though he's several leagues ahead these days." Blackwood studied me with unconcealed curiosity. "What's your connection? If I may ask, that piece is extremely significant." Before I could formulate a response, my father materialized beside us, his expression thunderous beneath a brittle smile. "Julian, I see you've met my daughter. Harper was just about to help her mother with something, weren't you, dear?" Without waiting for my response, he gripped my elbow painfully and steered me away from the table toward a quiet alcove behind a massive floral arrangement. His fingers dug into my arm with bruising force. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed, alcohol heavy on his breath. "I'm attending my cousin's wedding, which I was invited to," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "Don't play games with me. That necklace, where did you get it? Did you steal it, or are you involved with Julian somehow trying to sabotage me?" The accusation was so absurd I couldn't help but laugh, which only enraged him further. "You think this is funny? My entire future is on the line today. Lord Windsor is watching me like a hawk. Blackwood is circling like a vulture, and you show up flaunting a piece of jewelry worth more than you could earn in a decade. It was a gift," I said for what felt like the 100th time, from who he demanded, his voice rising. "What kind of game are you playing?" "No game, father. I'm married." "The necklace was an anniversary present." He snorted in disbelief. "Married to whom? Some starving artist who deals in forgeries. You never bothered to ask about my life. So don't act offended that you don't know the details." Now something in my calm defiance seemed to push him over the edge. He grabbed my wrist and dragged me back toward the center of the reception where speeches were about to begin. Guests turned to stare as we approached, sensing the spectacle unfolding. "Richard, what are you doing?" my mother hissed, rushing toward us, exposing whatever con she's trying to pull. He snarled, then raised his voice to address the now silent room. "Lord Windsor, Mr. Blackwood, esteemed guests. I believe we have an impostor in our midst." Hundreds of eyes turned toward us. Amelia's expression flickered between confusion and delight at no longer being the center of attention. Sebastian looked merely annoyed at the interruption. "My daughter," Richard continued, his voice dripping, "with contempt seems to have acquired jewelry she has no means to purchase. A Pierce original. I'm told quite valuable." Lord Windsor stepped forward, frowning. "Richard, this hardly seems the appropriate. She's just the housemaid." My father screamed, his composure shattering completely. "Always has been. Not good enough for university, not good enough for proper society, certainly not good enough to own something authentic." In one violent motion, he grabbed my necklace and yanked, the chain snapped, cutting into my skin before breaking. The diamond pendant fell into his palm as I stumbled backward, one hand flying to my bleeding neck. The room gasped collectively. Someone dropped a glass. My mother covered her mouth in shock. Not at my father's actions, but at the public scene he was creating. "Richard," Lord Windsor barked, stepping forward, "control yourself immediately." But my father was beyond reason, his face purple with rage and humiliation. "This ends now, security. This woman is attempting to defraud my family on my daughter's wedding day." Victoria rushed to his side. "She's always been jealous of Amelia. We should have expected something like this." My mother joined them, forming a wall of rejection. "Harper, how could you embarrass us this way on today?" Of all days, 2 security guards approached, uncertainly looking to Lord Windsor for confirmation. "This is a family matter," Lord Windsor began, but my father cut him off. "She's not family. Not anymore. Remove her from the premises. Immediately." The guards hesitated. Then, each took one of my arms. I could have fought, could have screamed the truth to the room full of shocked aristocrats and social climbers. Instead, I straightened my spine, lifted my chin, and allowed them to escort me out with as much dignity as I could muster, despite the tears streaming down my face. "Wait," I said as we reached the exit. "My purse and coat, will have someone bring them out." One guard replied, not unkindly, and then I was outside the massive oak doors, closing behind me with terrible finality. The English winter bit through my thin-stained dress. No coat, no phone, no money, just the burning humiliation and the small trickle of blood drying on my neck where the necklace had torn my skin. I stood there shivering, watching my breath form clouds in the frigid air, and wondered how my father could possibly have thought I had anything left to lose. The castle courtyard was deserted. All guests and staff focused on the reception inside. Wind whipped through the formal gardens, sending dead leaves skittering across ancient cobblestones. I hugged myself for warmth, the thin silk of my dress offering little protection against the biting cold. How long would I have to wait? Minutes, hours? Would anyone even remember to bring my belongings? Or was I expected to simply disappear into the night? The family embarrassment conveniently erased from the picture-perfect wedding. A memory surfaced being 8 years old, locked outside our vacation home after spilling juice on Amelia's white dress. Think about what you've done, my mother had said through the door. I'd sat on the porch for 3 hours before the housekeeper took pity and let me in through the kitchen. Some patterns never change. I'd spent my entire life waiting outside, hoping for acceptance that never came. The cut on my neck stung in the cold air. My hand went instinctively to where the necklace should have been, feeling its absence like a phantom limb. It wasn't the monetary value I mourned, but the meaning behind it. Nathaniel's belief in possibilities in me and us. We create our own worth. He told me once, "No one else gets to decide what you deserve." Standing there in the growing darkness, something shifted inside me. A lifetime of seeking approval from people incapable of giving it suddenly seemed like the most pointless endeavor imaginable. I had built a life filled with love, purpose, and authenticity, everything my family pretended to have but didn't. The side door creaked open, startling me from my thoughts. A young server, the same one who'd been carrying the tray when Victoria orchestrated my wine accident, stepped out cautiously. "Mrs. Pierce," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. "I brought your coat and this." He handed me my wool coat and, surprisingly, my clutch purse. "Thank you," I said, genuinely moved by this small kindness. "How did you know my name?" He looked sheepish. "Everyone in the staff knows who you are now." Bit of an uproar inside after you left. He hesitated. "Lord Windsor is properly furious with your father. Never seen the old man so worked up." "I appreciate this," I said, slipping on the coat with relief. "More than you know." He nodded awkwardly. "Bus get back before I missed. Good luck, ma'am." As the door closed behind him, I checked my clutch, phone, wallet, passport, all there. I could call a taxi, flee to the nearest hotel, book the first flight home, and put this nightmare behind me, the sensible choice. Instead, I found a stone bench partially sheltered from the wind by an ancient yew hedge and sat down, opening my phone. I found 3 missed calls and several texts from Nathaniel. "Just landed on my way. Driver says 20 minutes to the venue. Harper, are you okay? Please respond when you can." I typed. "I'm outside the main entrance. They took the necklace and threw me out. I'm okay, just cold and humiliated." His response was immediate. 5 minutes away. Stay put." True to his word, less than 5 minutes later, the quiet evening was interrupted by the sound of multiple vehicles approaching. 3 black SUVs with tinted windows pulled into the circular drive, moving with choreographed precision. Security personnel emerged from the first and last vehicles. 4 men in dark suits with earpieces and the hyper-vigilant posture of former military. The center SUV's door opened and Nathaniel stepped out. My heart lurched at the sight of him, tall, imposing in his tailored overcoat. His normally kind face set in lines of controlled anger as he scanned the courtyard. When he spotted me, his expression softened instantly. "Harper," he breathed, crossing the distance between us in long strides. I stood on shaky legs just as he reached me, and then his arms were around me, solid and warm and safe. I hadn't realized how thoroughly the evening had shattered my composure. Until that moment, I clung to him, trembling from more than just the cold. "You're freezing," he murmured, pulling back to look at me. His eyes darkened when he noticed the small injury on my neck. One finger gently traced the mark. "They did this to you?" "My father." I confirmed, the words still unbelievable. Even as I spoke them, he ripped off the necklace in front of everyone, called me. The housemaid had security throw me out. Something dangerous flashed. In Nathaniel's eyes, a glimpse of the ruthless business acumen that had built his empire, usually hidden beneath his gentle demeanor. "William Windsor called me directly after it happened," he said. Guiding me toward the warmth of the waiting vehicle, he was appalled. Apparently, Julian Blackwood recognized the necklace immediately. It's quite famous in certain circles inside the SUV. The heated leather seats and privacy divider created a cocoon of safety. One of Nathaniel's security team handed me a thermos of hot tea, which I accepted gratefully. Carson Nathaniel addressed the head of his security. Please retrieve Mrs. Pierce's belongings from inside and locate Mr. Richard Mitchell. I believe he has something that belongs to my wife. Yes, sir? Carson nodded his expression, suggesting he might enjoy this particular assignment as two security members headed for the entrance. I placed my hand on Nathaniel's arm. What are you planning to do? First, ensure you're all right, he said, his voice gentle as he brushed a strand of hair from my face, then retrieve your necklace after that. His expression hardened. We have some choices to make. They're not worth it, I said quietly. Let's just go. Nathaniel studied me carefully. Is that what you truly want to walk away? I considered the question seriously. For years, I'd tried to fade into the background of my family's drama to escape their toxicity through avoidance. Where had that gotten me still vulnerable to their cruelty, still carrying the weight of their rejection? No. I finally admitted, I'm tired of slinking away. I'm tired of being the family secret, the disappointment, the one who's never enough. For once, I want to stand my ground. A smile slowly spread across his face, proud, fierce, loving. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Carson returned surprisingly quickly. Sir Lord Windsor has requested you join him inside, he says, and I quote, This bloody circus has gone on long enough. Nathaniel turned to me. Your call, love, we can leave right now, or we can finish this. I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. The girl who had arrived alone hours earlier might have chosen escape, but sitting there with Nathaniel's unwavering support, I found a reservoir of strength I hadn't known I possessed. Let's finish it, I decided, but first I need 5 minutes to fix my makeup and hair. Nathaniel's smile was worth every moment of humiliation I'd endured. That's my girl, as I freshened up. Using the SUV's well-appointed vanity, Nathaniel briefed me on what Lord Windsor had told him apparently after I'd been escorted out. William had demanded an explanation from my father when Richard admitted he'd essentially accused his own daughter of theft and fraud. Lord Windsor had been disgusted. The situation deteriorated further when Julian Blackwood confirmed the necklace was indeed Nathaniel Pierce's Genesis diamond, a piece so significant in the jewelry world that attempting to sell a replica would be like trying to pass off a fake Mona Lisa. Your father's still holding the necklace, I asked, applying a fresh coat of lipstick with steady hands according to Windsor. Yes, he refused to give it to anyone, insisting it must be counterfeit. I shook my head, marveling at my father's capacity for self-deception. He'd rather believe I'm a thief than accept I've succeeded without his help. Some people can't recognize genuine value unless it comes with external validation. Nathaniel said, Ready. I checked my reflection one last time. The wine stain on my dress was still visible, but my expression was transformed. No longer hurt or defensive, but resolute, ready with Nathaniel's security team flanking us. We approached the castle entrance this time. No one would make me wait outside our entrance into the Great Hall, created exactly the effect you might expect when a billionaire and his security detail interrupt a high society wedding reception conversation died. Mid-sentence, champagne flutes paused. Halfway to parted lips, the string quartet faltered, then fell silent. Every eye in the room turned toward us. I spotted my family immediately. My father stood near the head table, my mother and aunt flanking him like sentries. The necklace dangled from his clenched fist. Amelia and Sebastian sat frozen in their ornate chairs, the bride's expression vacillating between outrage at the interrupted spotlight and fascination with the unfolding drama. Lord Windsor broke the silence, striding forward to greet us. Nathaniel. About bloody time, the situation has become intolerable. They shook hands with the easy familiarity of old associates, my father's face drained of color as the implications registered. You know each other, he stated flatly. For over a decade, Lord Windsor confirmed Pierce Technologies handles the renewable energy systems for all our shipping operations. Most efficient in the business, Nathaniel's hand found the small of my back, a gesture of support that didn't go unnoticed by the watchful. William, thank you for calling me. I understand there has been an unfortunate misunderstanding regarding my wife. The word wife reverberated through the hall like a thunderclap. Gasps and whispers rippled across the assembly. My mother swayed slightly, gripping Victoria's arm for support. Wife Julian Blackwood stepped forward, looking between us with new interest. Well, the mysterious Mrs. Pierce. The business world has speculated about your identity for years. Not so mysterious, I replied evenly. Just private. My father found his voice at last, though it emerged strangled and uncertain. This is absurd. You expect us to believe you married Nathaniel Pierce, the tech billionaire. I married an artist with an extraordinary vision for sustainable technology. I corrected him. His bank account was irrelevant. Nathaniel's smile held genuine amusement, though it did come in handy for purchasing your father's debt. This time the gasps were audible throughout the room. Richard's face flushed an alarming shade of purple. What are you talking about? He demanded. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Lord Windsor suggested, glancing meaningfully at the fascinated wedding guests. No, I said firmly. I was humiliated publicly. Well, resolve this publicly. Nathaniel nodded his agreement. William, would you mind explaining the situation to Richard? He seems confused. Lord Windsor sedate adjusting his cufflinks. Mitchell, when I began looking into your company's financials for our merger, I discovered numerous irregularities rather than expose them immediately. I consulted with Nathaniel, who expressed interest in acquiring your outstanding loans, which I did through a series of holding companies. Nathaniel continued smoothly. Every mortgage, every business loan, every line of credit as of last week, your primary creditor is effectively my wife. A strangled noise escaped my father's throat across the room. Amelia's perfect composure finally cracked her mouth hanging open in undisguised shock. Sebastian rose from his seat at the head table. Father, what does this mean for our arrangement with the Mitchells? Lord Windsor's expression was grim. It means, son, that your new father-in-law neglected to mention he's functionally insolvent and under investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission. The merger we discussed is worthless. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. My mother sank into a nearby chair, her social mask crumbling to reveal naked panic beneath. You did this! My father spat, taking a menacing step toward me. You orchestrated this whole thing to humiliate me? No, Richard, Nathaniel replied, his voice hardening. You managed that entirely on your own when you assaulted your daughter and stole her property, speaking of which he extended his hand expectantly. My father's fingers tightened around the necklace. This can't be real. She's never accomplished anything in her life. The casual cruelty of his dismissal still had the power to wound, but this time I refused to show it instead. I stepped forward, directly facing the man whose approval I'd sought for so long. That necklace contains the first diamond Nathaniel ever purchased. I said, my voice clear and steady, before his company existed, before his success. It represented his belief in possibilities. He gave it to me because he believed in me, in my art, in my voice, in my worth, long before any gallery did something you never managed to do. The Genesis diamond, Julian Blackwood interjected, unable to contain himself. Legendary in the industry. I've offered millions for it. It's not for sale. Nathaniel and I said in unison. Richard, Lord Windsor's voice carried a note of finality return. Mrs. Pierce's property immediately trapped and cornered. My father had no choice with trembling fingers. He held out the necklace. The platinum chain was broken, the setting slightly bent from his rough handling. I took it carefully, feeling its familiar weight in my palm. Thank you, now what? Richard asked, defeat evident in his slumped shoulders. You've won. You've humiliated me in front of everyone. Are you going to destroy me completely? Call in the loans force? Bankruptcy? It was the question I'd been asking myself since learning of Nathaniel's acquisition of my family's debt. What did I want? Revenge? Justice, or something else entirely? That depends on you. I said quietly. For years, I tried to earn your love by being someone I wasn't. I'm not doing that anymore, but I'm also not. I don't need to destroy others to feel valuable. I glanced at Nathaniel, who nodded his support for whatever I decided. You have two choices. I continued. First option. We restructure your debt with favorable terms, giving you a chance to rebuild legitimately, ethically in exchange. You seek therapy to address whatever broken. Part of you needs to demean others to feel powerful. My father blinked in disbelief. And the second option, we walk away permanently. No restructuring, no family connection. No more chances, the debt proceeds normally, through standard channels, and whatever happens, but you never contact me again. A heavy silence fell over the hall as everyone awaited his response. My mother finally approached, her expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. Harper, she began hesitantly, I don't understand. After everything that's happened, why would you offer to help? Because holding on to hate hurts me more than it hurts you. I replied simply, I'm choosing to break the cycle from the corner of my eye. I noticed Amelia slipping away from the head table. She approached tentatively, the massive train of her wedding gown dragging behind her like the weight of unspoken history between us. I'm sorry, she whispered when she reached me, tears smudging her perfect makeup. I've always been horrible to you because I was jealous of me. I couldn't hide my surprise. You had everything? Amelia shook her head. You had courage. You left and built something real. I'm just this. She gestured at her elaborate gown, the lavish reception, a transaction. The genuine pain in her eyes reminded me that gilded cages are still cages. Perhaps we had more in common than I'd realized. It's not too late to build something authentic. I told her, surprising myself with the sincerity of the sentiment, as Amelia and I shared this unexpected moment of connection. My father seemed to shrink before my eyes. Not the towering figure of my childhood fears, but simply a man whose ambition had outpaced his integrity. I need time to consider, he finally said. Take all the time you need. Nathaniel replied, Our offer expires at midnight. After that, business proceeds as usual. Lord Windsor cleared his throat. Now that this matter is temporarily resolved, perhaps we could allow the bride and groom to continue their celebration. Nathaniel Harper, would you join us at the head table as my personal guests? The invitation, so pointed in its exclusion of my parents, was both olive branch and statement. A new alignment of power publicly displayed as we made our way across the room, guests parting before us like the Red Sea. I felt an unfamiliar lightness for the first time in my life. I was neither seeking my family's approval nor running from their judgment. I was simply myself, Harper Pierce, standing in my truth, and that I realized was the greatest victory of all. The sleek interior of Nathaniel's car cocooned us in quiet as we left the Windsor estate behind. Through the tinted windows, I watched the castle's illuminated turrets recede into the distance, growing smaller until they were just pinpricks of light in the darkness, symbolic, somehow. Are you okay? Nathaniel asked, his hand warm around mine. I considered the question carefully. The evening had been a roller coaster of humiliation, confrontation, and ultimately liberation. My neck still bore the small cut from the necklace chain, and my emotions felt similarly raw and exposed. I think I will be, I answered honestly. It's strange I spent so many years being afraid of their rejection, and now that I've experienced the worst they could do, I feel free. Nathaniel smiled, lifting my hand to press a kiss against my knuckles. You were magnificent in there. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. You absolutely could have. He corrected me gently. You're stronger than you know, but I'm glad you didn't have to. We rode in comfortable silence for a while, the English countryside rolling past our windows in shadowy contours. My thoughts drifted to the choice I'd offered. My father, had it been naive to extend an olive branch after such betrayal? Or was it the only way to truly break free of the cycle? Do you think he'll take the offer? I finally asked Nathaniel. Considered this, your father is a proud man. Pride has its uses, but it makes a terrible compass. My guess Eleanor will convince him it's the sensible choice, but he'll never acknowledge what it cost him. Their approval doesn't matter anymore. I said, realizing the truth of it as the words left my mouth. It's just they're still my family, as dysfunctional as we are. Family is complicated, Nathaniel agreed. But remember, it's also something we create for ourselves, not just something we're born into a week later. Those words would resonate even more deeply as I stood in the airy downtown space that would soon become the Harper Pierce Foundation. For young artists, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the potential of the empty rooms. What do you think? I asked Rachel, who had flown in from London to help me conceptualize the space. My cousin, the only family member I'd remained in contact with after the wedding debacle, spun in a slow circle, taking it all in. It's perfect. Imagine all the kids who will find their voice here. The foundation had been my response to the wedding aftermath, a way to channel the painful experience into something positive. We would provide scholarships, mentorship, and exhibition opportunities to young artists from difficult family backgrounds. The pain of being told, your passion is worthless. I could transform that into support for others facing the same struggle. Have you heard from them? Rachel asked carefully. I nodded. My mother called yesterday, first time in years. She's reached out rather than responding to my calls. The conversation had been awkward, stilted, with unspoken emotions and fragile new boundaries. Eleanor had been uncharacteristically subdued, perhaps humbled by how quickly their carefully constructed social facade had crumbled. Richard agreed to the debt restructuring I told Rachel, and apparently he's seeing a therapist, though Mother presented it as executive coaching to save his pride. Miracles never cease, Rachel remarked dryly. It's a start, I shrugged. I'm not expecting overnight transformation, just maybe something healthier. Eventually, my phone buzzed with a text from Nathaniel. Package arrived home in 20 that evening. As the sun set over the Manhattan skyline visible from our penthouse windows, Nathaniel presented me with a small blue velvet box. What's this? I asked. Though I had my suspicions. Open it, he encouraged with a smile inside. Lay my necklace, the Genesis. Diamond restored to its original glory. The platinum chain had been repaired, the setting repolished to its former brilliance. But there was something different, something new. Turn it over, Nathaniel suggested. On the back of the setting, a tiny inscription had been added, strength rises from broken places. Tears welled in my eyes as Nathaniel fastened the necklace around my neck, its familiar weight settling against my collarbone once more. Perfect, he said, stepping back to admire it. I was so afraid. I'd lost it forever, I admitted, touching the diamond gently. Some things are too precious to lose, he replied. They may get damaged, they may need repair, but their essential value remains. I knew he wasn't just talking about the necklace that night. As we discussed plans for the Foundation's inaugural exhibition, our conversation turned to family, both the one we'd been born into and the one we were creating. I want our children to know their worth isn't determined by achievements or others' approval. I said the words surfacing from a place of deep conviction. I want them to understand that failure isn't fatal and success isn't final. Nathaniel's eyes softened, because they'll have you showing them every day what authentic strength looks like. In the months that followed, the foundation took shape, becoming a vibrant community hub. Rachel moved permanently to New York to help run it, bringing her warmth and empathy to young artists still finding their voice. My relationship with my parents remained complicated, but was evolving slowly towards something resembling mutual respect, if not the unconditional love I'd once craved. Most surprisingly, Amelia reached out regularly, her marriage to Sebastian having prompted some genuine soul-searching behind the perfect facade. She was discovering her own authentic voice, tentatively exploring photography as more than just a society. Hobby, our chosen family expanded to friends, colleagues, and foundation students gathering regularly in our home for dinners that brimmed with laughter, creativity, and acceptance. The contrast with the sterile, judgmental gatherings of my childhood couldn't have been starker. The necklace remained my daily companion. Its significance transformed, no longer just a symbol of Nathaniel's belief in me. It now represented my own journey from seeking external validation to finding unshakable inner worth. Standing in your truth isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means being escorted out of fancy weddings. Sometimes it means offering forgiveness that hasn't been earned always. It means choosing authenticity over approval, but the freedom on the other side that's worth every difficult step of the journey have. You ever had to stand up to family who didn't support your dreams? How did you find the courage to be true to yourself, despite others' expectations? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that. Their worth isn't determined by others' opinions. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your value was never up for debate in the first place.